government down, that's up to them. But I believe we will have the votes. I think the importance of it's going to be stressed by the president. And I think we have to follow the president's lead in this case. We do not want to close government down. At the same time, we're making major reforms, and these reforms take time, and they need to be done, as we're going to discuss, I think, in a few moments, carefully, as I have said, and of course the president is saying as well now, they need to be done with a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer. I think that's what we're going to do, and we're going to work through this. And in the interim, unfortunately, this is necessary as well. The president's going to make that clear, and I think the members of Congress are going to follow suit, at least on our side.
New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew talking about the CR, the continuing resolution that President Trump has asked those legislators to support. Now, I've heard a lot of nasty things about continuing resolutions or CRs from Republicans, from Democrats as well, but certainly from Republicans. Now President Trump is saying, we got to do it. We've got to get this CR. Give me till September. Let's talk to the man on Capitol Hill. We are joined once again by Ryan Schmelz, Fox News Radio Capitol Hill and White House correspondent. Thank you again for being with us, Ryan. Always good to have you on their show.
Always great to be on, Annie. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Now, I think that with a very slim majority of Republicans in the House and this new kind of wrinkle in the budgeting process, is it surprising that we're trying to pursue a CR under Donald Trump's advisement here? Did they see this coming, or was this a pivot at some point?
I wouldn't say it's shocking because, the last government funding package funded the government until the Ides of March 14th. Of course, it just had to be that date. And then you had President Trump taking office in late January. So they were always going to be up against the clock when it came to how they were going to fund the government. And they spent a lot of their first 2 months in office, getting President Trump's cabinet nominees confirmed, but also working on the one big beautiful bill with the reconciliation process. So the CR kind of got pushed to the side for a little bit. So getting the full budget that Republicans wanted to get done was always going to be a challenge. But now it looks like they're going to try to punt this all the way to the end of September and then try to focus on the 12 individual spending bills so they can avoid a CR in the future.
I want to take this way back to the 100-level class, the entry-level class of, how do we get a bill? How do we get a budget? Because I feel like I'm looking at a table with a lot of information on it. I want to organize the stacks of paper so people understand what we're talking about. Because we've discussed with you, Ryan, the House has passed a bill. We've discussed with you the Senate has passed a bill. We've heard about the word reconciliation. Now we're hearing about continuing resolutions. Can you walk us through this process of what this CR takes the place of in the midst of the work that has already been done in Congress to get us back to a place of fiscal responsibility?
Right. So the term budget reconciliation, I think, is really confusing to some people because I think they see the word budget and they assume that means that this is the bill that's going to fund the government, when it's not. It's more the bill that's going to get a lot of President Trump's agenda items through: border security, national security, energy policy, spending cuts. That's where budget reconciliation plays into. It also involves tax law. But when it comes to just the funding of the government, that is the March 14th deadline that we're dealing with right now. The government is currently funded under what's called a CR, a continuing resolution. So if they are to pass a CR, it is essentially a short-term extension of government funding, the current government funding levels that go all the way back to fiscal year 2024 that President Biden signed into law. They would extend that until the end of September, and then they would try to work on what's called the appropriations process, which is supposed to be the process for getting a full budget passed. You would have 12 individual spending bills that would fund different parts of the government, and pretty much they would work through each one of those bills. They would try to pass them out of committee, then pass them before the House, pass them before the Senate, and get them signed into law, if that makes sense.
Yep, it sure does. We're speaking with Ryan Schmelz. He's an expert on all of this, Fox News Radio Capitol Hill and White House correspondent. So Donald Trump has asked for more time. And as you pointed out very smartly, so since January 20th, when he has been sworn into office, we are not even to March 20th yet. So just a few months short, just a couple months short of being in the office. There's a lot to do as soon as you get in there. And the CRs have been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. How do you feel this Republican, very slim majority, maybe you can tell us what that majority is right now in the House, How do you feel about their ability to listen to the president and say, okay, let's go all in behind the president's leadership here and do what he's asking us to get done?
Well, President Trump definitely makes Speaker Johnson's job a lot easier because most Republicans are going to go along with what President Trump says. That doesn't mean every Republican's going to go along. Like Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who's already said he's a no on this upcoming CR vote that's going to happen tomorrow. But you're seeing people who probably would have never supported a CR in the past say they're open to a clean CR. That's an extension of President Biden's funding levels. Keep that in mind. Like the Freedom Caucus chairman, Andy Harris, Chip Roy, some of those names are a lot more open to a CR than they otherwise would have been in the past. So that's kind of giving, I think, Speaker Johnson a lot more of an assist than he needed than he otherwise would have had, before President Trump was in office. But Annie, what's interesting here is that Democrats don't seem like they're going to be willing to play ball with this one. And that's going to be a major problem because even if they're able to all get on the same page and get this thing through the House, well, the Senate, they're going to need 60 votes. That's an entirely different story there.
So, I'm reading from this article here from Fox News, and it's got a quote from a trio of House Democrat leaders, which included House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, saying, "We're voting no." I've heard many times when the tables were turned, Democrats saying how irresponsible it is to participate in anything that would involve a government shutdown. How are the Democrats advocating right now to vote against the CR of Biden's spending? Why in the world would they vote in that against this if it's something that Biden had already put into place and it would shut down the government?
Well, the argument here, there's a couple of them, but I think the big argument that Democrats are making right now is that they think they want provisions in there that would, quote unquote, that what Republicans say would be reining in President Trump's power. Democrats say it's forcing President Trump to follow the law. They want provisions in there or guarantees that President Trump, if money is approved by Congress to fund the government, that money will go to what it's intended to do. And President Trump can't go in there and either rescind that funding or spend it on something else. Those are the kind of the guarantees they want before they go along with the CR. Now, there are some other arguments here, and that is that people don't like the government being funded on a CR in general, especially when it comes to military spending. You're spending money on programs that no longer exist. You're spending money on programs that might be outdated, and you can't really start any new military projects. That becomes a huge issue for military readiness. So there's some Democrats out there who think that the better idea would just be to do a month-long CR and then negotiate an omnibus to pass a month from now. And believe it or not, the appropriations chair, Susan Collins, top Republican on that committee, is on board with that idea. But I think she's kind of accepted the reality that the House is just not going to go along with that. So your best option now is a year-long CR that takes government funding until the end of September.
Ryan, what is President Trump's strategy here? Is he saying, well, this is why we're doing this? Because he's gotten everybody almost on board. So what's he saying they're going to come back and do in September?
Well, I think they're going to try to go for the full-on appropriations process. They're going to try to pass each bill, all 12 spending bills, separately, get them across the finish line. I think the idea with some Republicans is that they would be able to get agency heads into the room to do hearings with the committees and also get some of the cabinet secretaries in there too and explain, where they're going to find savings, where they're going to find cuts, and how they're going to make those changes for the next fiscal year. And I think Republicans are also justifying this as, well, we still have that other process, the one big, beautiful bill. Well, that could be an opportunity for them to codify some of these DOGE savings and these DOGE cuts by using what's called a rescissions package, where you would pretty much send a bill to Congress. It would show some of the savings and some of the cuts and explain why you're doing it. And then you could attach that to the one big, beautiful bill and get some of those DOGE savings codified.
Well, there's a lot of work to be done, and I assume this is going to be a very busy week on Capitol Hill. Ryan Schmelz, we appreciate you. Thank you for the update. Can't wait to hear how this goes next week in our next conversation.
Sounds good, Annie. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.